iPhone 11 Pro, Pro Max. Let's do it! Hey there, friends on YouTube. My name is Jason, sometimes known as the JTL. This is painfully honest tech. Tech so honest it hurts. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for stopping by. And if you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back. Leading into this year's iPhone season, there were a lot of hopes dashed when it became clear that we weren't going to get the overhaul we hoped for in the design department for the iPhone. This was maybe the most leaked iPhone to date, and it seemed like we knew everything there was to know coming into February. We were so over the iPhone 11 that we started talking about the iPhone coming next year in 2020. The camera hump in the links was ugly. I've called it everything from a goiter to a hemorrhoid to an insect eyes to I don't even know what. The design was going to be the same as last year. The notch wasn't going to go anywhere. The headphone jack was still gone. But a funny thing happened on the way to the iPhone 11's funeral. Apple actually released a pretty solid update to the phone that really shines in a few very important places. Does that mean you should run out and get one? Now, disclaimer, to be clear, I'm not talking about the iPhone 11 in this review. I'm talking about the Pro and the Pro Max. I'll have a separate review of the 11 coming soon. These are just the Pro models, and let's address that. There's nothing overtly Pro about these iPhones. It's a name, it's stupid, but hey, they couldn't necessarily come out and call the iPhone 11 more expensive but nicer than the other one, and the iPhone 11 more expensive than the other one but bigger. That said, there were some areas where they focused their efforts with these phones that I think paid off for the most part. Here are the main areas where they focused this iPhone: design, battery, camera, screen. There were also some improvements that they made along the way. They say that Face ID is about 30% faster and it works at better angles, but not so that you don't have to lean over the table to get it to register you. IP68 water resistant from 4 meters for 30 minutes, which usually for most phones, it's 2 meters for 30 minutes. So it's more waterproof. They did take away 3D touch so that they had more room for batteries, and the battery life on these phones is crazy. We'll cover that a little bit more in a bit. The screen, as with all iPhones, is really great. It gets brighter, but that's not really noticeable on a day-to-day basis. If you compare it to last year's phone, there's not really a huge visible difference, but it is better in many ways. Here's the improvement that matters for the most people out there. The battery life on these Pro iPhones is insane. I just got through 2 full days of use without charging this smaller iPhone Pro, and I mean, I got up at 5 a.m. yesterday or day before yesterday and went to sleep at midnight or so last night, and this thing stayed charged all the way through. I had 11% battery when I went to sleep last night, and that's not it. I don't think I've ever done that with an iPhone, so just that's nuts. Battery anxiety with this phone is going to be a thing of the past. You'll be hard-pressed to kill this thing in a day. You can use it as you would want to, as much as you want to, and not really have to worry at all. On the negative side, of course, we still have the notch. It's still there. I actually think that Apple looks at the notch as a differentiating sort of design feature to distinguish the iPhone from anything else. Now, everybody else seems to hate it, but I think that's the way that Apple actually looks at it. I'm not saying I agree. I think the notch is ugly as just about everybody else does, but that's, I think, the way that they look at it. Of course, we got a brand new CPU inside this thing. We've got the A13 Bionic chip. I think it's the yes, A13 Bionic chip. It's faster, but you don't really notice that in everyday use. It probably does help extend the battery life with more efficiency. Apple spent a ton of time talking about this chip during their event, and it was kind of like whoosh, went straight over my head. But I think they were trying to get across that there is a big difference in this chip, even though on daily use, you won't really notice any kind of speed boost or anything like that over last year's phone. Another big bone of contention, but also big improvement, is of course these cameras. The improvements are both super significant and hard to notice. To my eye, the iPhone has always been great at reproducing true-to-life photos that look more natural and lifelike, and it's better at that than ever before this year. The way I see the cameras working for me this year is that it's easier for me to take really good photos without having to work harder at it. It's just a better camera all around. It's really difficult to take a bad photo with this iPhone whereas before that might not have always been the case in certain scenarios. I noticed right away that I didn't have to fiddle around to try and get the shot that I was looking for. It was much easier to just point and shoot, and I think that's what Apple usually goes for with this. There are a lot of cool features that come along with these 3 new lenses. You can actually move between all the 3 lenses while recording video, which is something you can shoot 4K video on the front camera. Of course, you got the slow-fi, which was fun for about a minute, plus the ability to see all of the photo in the UI as you're trying to take the picture, so you can see all of the different lenses and what picture they would take. There are a lot more new and improved features, not the least of which is the night mode. I found myself not always getting great night mode shots all the time. There's no way to manually turn the night mode on, so I did find myself fighting with the camera in between, like wishing the night mode would come on and it didn't, and sometimes it would show a flash instead, and that was frustrating. I think it's going to take some time for me to get used to, but the night mode shots that did turn out well really looked very good. Suffice it to say that Apple is back in the running for best camera on a smartphone in a big way, and if you're thinking about buying an iPhone this year and cameras matter to you a lot on your smartphone, then that should help you make your decision right there. You're going to be happy with what's happening here. The iPhone 11 Pro and Pro Max are the best cameras in the game right now, in my estimation, and we'll just have to see what Google comes up with in a couple of weeks to see if the Pixel can retake the crown of best camera. Also worth noting for me is the ability to choose the aspect ratio inside the camera app. I shoot a lot of my thumbnails for this channel on my phone, and having a camera that defaulted to 4.3 instead of 16:9 was always problematic, although to keep that aspect ratio now, you have to go back into the camera settings that are inside the settings app and a couple of levels deep to be able to do that. This is the sort of thing that has always annoyed the heck out of me about iOS, is so many features are stuck inside the settings app and not in the apps themselves, which isn't usually the case with, say, an Android phone. For the average person, this new camera array means it's easier to take really good photos and video with a significant upgrade to your options when doing so. iOS 13 also brought some stuff to the phone that I've wanted for a long time, not least of which a dedicated dark mode. My eyes are getting more and more sensitive as I age, I guess, and I can honestly feel the eye strain just lessen when I turn on dark mode. There are a lot of little things here and there in iOS 13 that have changed or been introduced, but I've been using it now for a few months in beta, so it feels like iOS. There's not anything besides dark mode that really changes the way that you'll use the phone. I will say that a feature that matters to me, that's been helpful to me, that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, is the first native gesture mode on the keyboard for iOS 13. In my use, compared to the others that are out there in the Android system and all that kind of stuff, this one is more accurate and forgiving. In fact, I used it to write this entire script for this video while lying in bed this morning, and it wasn't like a super annoying experience. It wasn't a chore at all. So that's a lot of the good stuff. What about the bad stuff? A lot of folks have reported bugs on iOS 13, and I've had a few apps like fritz out, and that sucks, but there's been nothing catastrophic. The phone launched with some software features that didn't exist, and we didn't get reverse wireless charging with the phone as we anticipated that we would. That kind of sucks. A lot of people just won't touch the iPhone with the notch. And while it still bugs me, it's hard to keep complaining about it 3 years in. If the redesign that's rumored to be on the way next year actually happens, maybe the notch will go away. But for now, it's here. That doesn't mean I have to like it, but it's here. That also doesn't mean I'm not going to complain about the omission of the headphone jack, especially on a phone that they're calling Pro. The headphone jack is a Pro port. And yes, you can complain about the omission of USB-C and reverse wireless charging and all that kind of stuff. It's silly to have an iPad Pro and with USB-C and to have forced the world into USB-C Thunderbolt 3 when it wasn't ready with the MacBooks and not have it on the iPhone now. But the truth of the matter is Apple makes a ton of money from the Lightning port. And I guess they're going to hang on to the Lightning port for at least this one more year so they can keep rolling in that cash for the licensing of the jack and the port. There are plenty of more nits to pick, like it's really annoying still when you accidentally take screenshots all the time because you're trying to close the phone. And of course, now without 3D touch, the way that you have to move the apps around and rearrange the apps is even more annoying than it was before. It's still probably the worst way I've ever seen to organize something in the history of ever, and looks like Apple's never going to change that. But this is a phone I thought I was going to hate just for the camera bump all by itself. And it's turned out to be one of the most solid iPhone updates we've seen in a long time, if not ever. Believe me, I'm as surprised as you that I'm saying this. But should you buy it? Who is this phone for? If you're a person who upgrades to the best phone available every year and you're an iPhone person, then why are you even watching this video? If you have an iPhone 7 or older, the camera alone and the battery life are worth the jump. If you have an iPhone 10 or 10s, you could wait until next year or whenever the redesign happens and not miss a ton. The camera and the battery life, though, those are really compelling features. I'm pleased with the iPhone 11 Pro, and I haven't been pleased with a lot of what Apple's done in recent years. To be painfully honest, they have won back some of my trust with these new iPhones. Let's see if they can keep it through the rest of the year. Let me know what you think about the new iPhone 11 Pro, Pro Max, whatever, down in the comments below. We'll have a boisterous discussion. I thought I was going to hate this thing. I really anticipated ranting and raving, but instead I find myself really liking it, and I'm sure that's going to make some people mad, but that's the truth of the matter. That's the painfully honest truth. At any rate, thanks so much again for being here. If you want to come back again, like, subscribe, bell, notify yourself. And if you've been here before, there's a join button down below this video that you can hit, and it will allow you to be a member of the channel, be a part of the Wizard Squad, and have all kinds of perks like special hats when in chat and things like that. One more time, my name is Jason. This is Painfully Honest Tech. Tech so honest it hurts. Until the next time, I'm out.